Good. All right, good afternoon, class. How are we doing today? All right, so I will be presenting on flipped classrooms today, and let's get right into the presentation. So first off, before we talk about the pros and cons of flipped classrooms, we have to talk about what even are flipped classrooms. And in essence, a flipped classroom is basically just focused on flipping traditional classroom models. It takes the material, puts it online for students to see at home, makes sure that they use their technology and uses it at home, and then in the classroom, they focus on actually doing the homework, see homework, now classwork, because that helps to boost student understanding. It devotes more of the classroom time to understanding the material rather than just lecturing on and on and on. Y'all have had those professors that just sits there and talks all the time. We're sitting here, yada, 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 the War of 1812, blah, 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 and you don't get anything from it. What the flipped classroom does is it flips that on its head. See what I did there? Flipped classroom, just flips it on the head. There we go. Flips it on its head, and you get to use the student's technology, see the material at the house, bring it in, focus on actually understanding your material. Okay, so I actually really like this model. I found this on the internet, of course. So in class, you get to see students are getting acclimated with their new concepts outside of class, using their own technology. And then during class, they get to explore the new concepts through learning activities, one-on-one times, stuff of that nature. They get to do their homework and their out-of-class discussions with the teacher in class because it starts to boost their understanding of the material. So after class, they can also go in and kind of revamp their own understanding of the material. They know that they need to better understand the material through their own research because they know that the teachers have helped them, but overall, they need to go back and check to see if they truly understand it now and see if they need more help. All right, and here is a little YouTube video for not be what I wanted it to be. Let's go. And all right.
The flipped classroom is a new method of teaching that is turning the traditional classroom on its head. Every day, thousands of teachers deliver the exact same lesson in class to millions of students. Every night, millions of students sit over the exact same homework, trying to figure out how to solve it. The flipped classroom is turning this upside down. Traditionally, students listen to lectures and take tests in class, and read textbooks and work on problem sets at home. In flipped teaching, students first study the topic by themselves, typically using video lessons on YouTube, and then apply the knowledge by solving problems and doing practical work in class. Modern schools who flipped their classroom report many benefits. One, it allows all students to learn at their own pace as videos can be watched again. Two, it's more efficient as students enter the classroom prepared to contribute. Three, it enriches the classroom as more time can be spent on group work and projects. Four, doing homework in class allows students to help each other, which benefits both the advanced and less advanced learners. Flipping also brings changes for teachers. Traditionally, teachers engage most with the confident students who ask questions. Flipping allows teachers to target the students who really need help, instead of just those who are confident. Also, instead of instructing from the front, teachers guide on the side. This allows them to work more closely with individuals or small groups. Teachers that are not great presenters can use third-party videos to explain the concept and focus on methods of teaching that suit their style, such as project work or experiments. Once video lectures are made available online, teachers don't need to give the same lecture over and over again. Again, they gain more time to focus on the needs of their class. Many scholars also argue that the flipped classroom model promotes equal learning opportunities, as all kids get the same attention when doing their homework. Currently, kids with caring parents, older siblings at home, or expensive private tutors have a clear advantage over those who don't. Let us know what you think. If you were a teacher, tell us if this model will be possible in your classroom.
All right. So in that video, y'all saw that flipped classrooms essentially take your traditional classroom model and flip them on their heads, of course. Flipped classrooms, flip it on their head. And the main thing that I took away from that video is that it gives equal opportunities to students. But as you'll see in just a little while, that can also not be true, because it's only true for those who actually have technology. So why should we use flipped classrooms? Well, first of all, it obviously helps to keep your students engaged, because if you're sitting there listening to your high school history teacher lecture on and on and on about the War of 1812 again, are you really engaged?
Mm-mm.
Are we going to sit there and really say that we're so excited to learn about the War of 1812 today?
Nope.
So, using flipped classrooms, you get all the boring stuff out of the way at home. You get your lecturing in, your videos in your lecturing over videos in at the house, and that helps to make sure that your teacher can use more interactive lessons at the school, because when you have more interactive lessons, it helps to keep your students engaged through that. So once again, it just prevents lectures and you just talking and talking and talking. One of the most important things is that it provides several different teaching methods to be implemented. That can be visual, auditory, all sorts of things. Like the best example would probably be in a science class. You don't want to sit there and just lecture on and on about science, especially in chemistry. So if you really want your students to understand how a certain chemical reacts with another, most of the time it's best to just show them what happens and then explain how this went on. You don't want to sit there and be like, well, the magnesium fused with the sulfur and that made magnesium sulfate and it was blah, 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 because students are just going to tune you out after a little while. So that allows for you to both lecture through YouTube videos, and on the Blackboard type apps, I'm sure that's what they use, you can upload different assignments that are different readings, different kind of videos. You can have interactive assignments on there, and then when you get in class, you can expound on those assignments. It promotes understanding of real learning, of course, through this different type of understanding, the different learning methods. And then, once again, it makes better use of class time, because lecturing, let's just be completely real, it doesn't really work all the time. It doesn't work for most people. You got to have something else along with your words to back up their learning. So let's look at some of the pros of flipped classrooms. One of the major pros is that it promotes student collaboration, because if you're using an online database for the YouTube videos, for your Blackboard type assignments, then you can better coordinate the collaborations that they're doing. And this helps them to do their group projects, because let's admit, nobody likes group projects because you can never coordinate them, you can never get in touch with your group members. It's always just a mess. Using the flipped classrooms allows them to get the lectures outside of class, and then they can do the collaborations inside class. Because, let's face it, collaborating outside of class kind of defeats the purpose of the whole collaboration, because you can't get together with it. Another pro is that it gives control to the students. They can control their own pace of learning. They can say how they want to learn. Now, you're still giving them what you want them to know, but overall, it gives them more control outside of class to control their own learning. But on the flip side, as we'll see in just a little while, that can also be a con. A major point is that lessons and content are more accessible. We all have that teacher that we go in there, they give a lecture, and then we don't exactly understand everything of what they said, but then it's just gone. You can go and look it up, but by the time you try to go and look it up, you've forgotten everything she said, you're going to miss major points. So this just allows information to always be out there, like we do at Miles with our e-textbooks, with everything like that. Access to the material means more parental involvement, of course, because then the parents can see what their child is doing, and then they can bring them in there and hopefully help their child. Now, that's not going to be in every household just because of, societal factors, cultural factors, but, what's going on there. Obviously, flipped classrooms are just a little bit more efficient because you have your children doing the lecture outside of class. You can do more meaningful activities in class. One major one is that it helps identify student thinking errors because you can see what specific assignments are they really struggling with, and you can see that more in class than just looking at their homework. Oh, yeah, they got this wrong, they got this wrong. You can teach them more openly in the classroom. So let's go on to the cons of the flipped classroom. Here's the biggie, okay? Let's just go back to when we were children. Remember when everyone was raving about the new Xbox and stuff like that? Did everyone have an Xbox? No. Not everybody has access to the technology that is required. Now you can go to libraries, but they're not always open. You can, give a friend, but let's face it, who all is going to trust their friend with some very fragile technology? So you can't make assumptions that everyone's going to have it. Another part is that it has significant front-end work. You can overload the children at home, but if you space it out just enough, then it can work, but there is front-end work involved with the students. Here's the biggie. In giving control to the students, you can also kind of get bit because flipped classrooms really rely on student participation. Because if your students don't participate, if they're having to take care of their sibling, if they have practice, if they have all of this stuff, they might not want to participate in the lecture. So by the time they get to class, they don't know what they're talking about. So that's a big con of it because, let's face it, children aren't just students. They are children. They are people too. They have social lives. They aren't just relegated to the classroom. Another one is that it's not necessarily a natural test prepper. It's not great for getting children ready for tests. By introducing the different learning styles, it can kind of get away from standardized testing, which I know we all want to get away from standardized testing, but let's just face it, it's always going to be here, so not necessarily great for doing that. The parental influence is not exactly taken into account. Now, you can have your parental involvement, hopefully, but let's say this goes back to not everyone has technology or access to it. If a parent does not believe in letting their child access the internet until they're, say, 8, is a first grader going to be able to go on, watch all these videos and stuff like that? No. So the parental influence plays a big factor there. Screen time increased, human interaction decreased. It makes it less humanized. So the screen time, by going up, kind of dehumanizes it. Another big con that really this con can be eliminated through discussion boards. It limits the direct feedback, but then again, sometimes it's better to have a student in class getting feedback right then. But that's only for the lecture part. If they have questions, I'm sure you can bring them in. So, do you think that you should get a flipped classroom? Let's weigh it. It's a great tool, but it has many flaws. So is it worth it? Is the utility plus the cost and the enjoyment of it, or how I like to say the utility, the cost, and the practicality of it, is it worth it? What do y'all think?
No.
You don't think so?
Not if you have to use like standardizing tests. And not
Well,
if
let's-
you're gonna teach lower kids. I wanna be first grade, kindergarten, preschool. It's really for me.
Now, I understand that a lot because, younger children, I would say their responsibility factor just really isn't there. So
I can
for
see it.
elementary majors, I understand
Yeah,
that.
I can see sixth grade, middle school, high school, it working, but necessarily for me, what I wanna teach now.
That makes a lot of sense. See, because I plan on teaching high school. That's a great place for this because they can have their own stuff, do their stuff, and then come in and I can get them. But I understand that for younger children, especially younger children. So that's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So everyone, y'all can pull out your phones, get on the computer, whatever. I have a little quiz, it's Kahoot, and we'll get into that. It's only a 5-question quiz, though, it's not very good. I didn't want to bog y'all down too much, so. Just a second. No pretty pictures, just